Hello, Kelly here with Kelly's Soroka Life and the Broom and Moon Coven, which is now open for membership. So if you are a witch or you want to learn about witchcraft, then the Coven is open and ready for membership. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit more at the end. But today I want to talk to you about the last in the series of the magical items that I'm working for in this month. And so for March, and this is I'm calling it my 4x4 practice. And so it's 4 items in 4 weeks. And I started doing this, I think, the beginning of 2025. And I really enjoyed it. And it was a way for me to work with different items that most of them already had. And I wanted to work with some things more in depth, or things that I had that I really never looked at, or read books that I had not read. And so this is my practice. So every month, and I started out with moon cycles, but it was just easier for me to do by month. So this month, for this past month, since we are now in April 1st, this past month in March, I worked with 4 items, and and I work with the same type of items every month, but different ones. So the 4 items, the magical items that I work with every month, are a crystal, an herb, a deck, and a book. So I use the crystal and do some research on it. And if it's one that I'm familiar with, then I kind of go back to it and remember, what did I like about it? What did I not like about it? Is it something that I really got along with? Is it something that is just kind of eh? And, what's the energy like? What's the story like? How is it good to use it? And a lot of times I find out, very surprising things about the crystal. So the crystal that is this month that I studied for March was Carnelian. I have to stop and think. Yeah, Carnelian. And I'll leave links to all those videos below, and at the end you can find that video with Carnelian. And Carnelian is one of those herbs or crystals that I really, really, really like. And so, but it was fun to go back and study Carnelian and study the history and how it's been used. So you can see that video. And the second thing, in the second week of the month, and I have a video for this too, I worked with the herb Cacao. And that was really interesting because cacao is very ancient. Cacao ceremonies were used, very long ago in ancient civilizations. But it was really interesting to see because cacao is being used today in ceremonies and kind of revitalizing that practice. And so it was fun to learn about the practice and learn about how it was used in ancient times and how it's being used today. And got to drink chocolate, and that was always fun because I love chocolate. So you'll find that video as well and there's also, you'll find Book of Shadows pages. And if you want to print out or have the information and the spells and the magic workings that go along with those as well. So you can find those. I'll leave the link to that, and that you can find in the Cauldron on my website. So then the third thing that I did this month last month was work with the deck, the Herbcrafter's Tarot. And one of the reasons that I wanted to work with not only crystals but herbs as well is because I'm studying herbalism now, and I've learned a lot about herbs and started using them not only magically but medicinally as well. And I'm learning all about the healing properties of the herbs and things that grow around me and things that are maybe a little bit more exotic, like cacao. And part of that, going along with that, is learning herbalism and learning things that are in danger, things that are, we have over harvested, things that become popular, and everybody decides that, this is the next, miracle cure to everything. And so then, the herb almost disappears. So, and there are some like that, and some I have studied, and you can go back and find those. And there's other herbs that have been used, just like cacao, in ceremonies, in cultural ceremonies. And I also wanted to learn about that, and to make sure that I was, being respectful of that as well. And so you can see, if you just look on, just look back at the older videos on the channel, you can see the herbs that I've worked with. But with cacao was the one that I worked with in in March, and learning more about the herb, and going deeper. And segueing into the Herbcrafter's Tarot, is I bought the Herbcrafter's Tarot many years ago, and I think it was published in 2019. And so I'm pretty sure I bought it, when it came out. And I've had it for a while, and I wanted to go back, now that I've learned a lot more about herbs. I wanted to go back and see what the herb, work with it again. It's one that I've had. It's one that I've always treasured, because I've always been interested in herbs and plants. And so it's one that I've really treasured, but I didn't know as much about herbs as I do now. So that was a really fun one. And again, the video, I'll leave a link to it so you can go and read, or listen and watch that video about the Herbcrafter's Tarot. So to round out this month, the book that I read is Becoming Baba Yaga by Kris Spisak. And this one is very interesting. I like to read a lot of books, and I have several books about Slavic magic and Slavic history and witchcraft and Slavic witchcraft, and specifically Baba Yaga, because our oldest son we adopted from Ukraine. So when we adopted him, we visited Ukraine, and we still keep in touch with people there that we met. And that being his birth country, it has a lot of meaning to us. And so I try to whenever I see something that I think is going to kind of add to that knowledge, I like to pick it up. And I'll talk to you about some other Baba Yaga and Slavic magic materials as well when we get done with this one. So this was one that I wanted to read, and it is a nonfiction book, although the author does talk about, give stories, and she starts out with several stories here, and when all old stories of Baba Yaga, and kind of her retelling of them. And I really enjoyed that, because I've read some of them, I had read and was very familiar with, and some of them were very new, and I really enjoyed reading them. And going back and seeing, she definitely traces Baba Yaga in her history, and how because we don't really know how she came about, and how the goddess came about, and where she came from. But we can look back at stories, and we can look back at oral history, and we can look back at older stories that Slavic and Russian and Ukrainian and other authors in that area wrote down, and said, this is a really good story, we need to write it down. And now I think a lot of the dark goddesses that have been villainized in the past, like Baba Yaga and Lilith, and maybe even the Morrigan, we're finding that they truly have a place in this time period, even as a dark goddess. We want to work with light goddesses, and we want to work with the dark goddesses as well. And so, and Baba Yaga is, to me, definitely, a darker goddess. But she is, we used to have chickens, and she has, her house is reportedly, it's in the stories, is on chicken feet. And we used to have chickens. And she flies in a mortar and pestle, which I really think is really cool because, again, I've always loved herbs and cooking and baking. And so, her flying around in a mortar and pestle was great. So when I started kind of being interested in more of the stories of all the gods and goddesses, not just the Greek and Roman that I kind of grew up with the stories though with those, but getting into different cultures and especially with having three children, not just my older son, but our other two children were adopted from other places. So they all have their cultures, and we always wanted to be very open to all cul- all cultures and all histories and folklores and tales. And so that was when we homeschooled, that was a big part of that. And so, continuing on with that and learning even more and going even more now that I have a witchcraft practice, going into reading about different kinds of witches and witchcraft in different cultures because it is, there's a lot of commonalities, but there are differences as well. And so this book seemed to kind of be a little bit of both. There's the stories that the author retells of Baba Yaga, and then her own commentary about those stories and Baba Yaga's place and how she has interpretations of her as today. And one of the things that she says is one of the things that is kind of comes across in a lot of the stories is that Baba Yaga, even though she's a lot of times the villain, she forces or helps or assists or kind of coaxes the hero or heroine in the story into finding themselves. And because and this is the four of the things that the author mentions in the book, because Baba Yaga expects respect, bravery, intelligence, and integrity. And so looking at those things and growing and becoming a person, a lot of times it's a young girl or that is sent for some whatever reason to find Baba Yaga, and she learns a lot about herself and she learns to have respect for herself and to be brave and to use her intelligence, and even if it's not respected, and to be, to have integrity and to know that there are good things in the world and there are not so good things in the world. So it was very interesting, and I thought that was one of the themes that went through the stories, and you could see it in how it came out in the different stories that the author includes in the book. And then there's one line that I really like that Baba Yaga and the author puts this in the stories. And when whoever it is in the story, whoever the other person is in the story comes to Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga will ask him, have you come to do deeds or run from them? So have you come to actually do something, or are you just trying to avoid things? And so sometimes we do. Sometimes we do want to avoid things. And so we make excuses, but knowing that having those things, respect, bravery, intelligence, and integrity, you can then, what are the D's that you need to do? And then Baba Yaga a lot of times sets deeds for the other person, the hero in the story, and sets deeds that seem impossible, but because this person shows bravery and shows intelligence and shows integrity, that person comes out on the other side and comes out as the and is able to face whatever is troubling her in the past or him in the past. So that was one of the things that I really liked about it. And one of the stories that she tells is the story of, and it is, let's see if I can find it. Oh, and this is, I thought, one of the good quote that she has in here. She's talking about Baba Yaga, and she says, uh, and there's of course, like we talked about, going and finding the deeds, and are you there to do deeds or to run from them? And as part of this, this hero's journey, when people face Baba Yaga, and a lot of times like I said, the deeds are really hard. It's like she throws poppy seeds on the ground, and you have to go, the heroine has to go and pick up all the poppy seeds off the ground, which is, almost impossible. And so it kind of brings up and she says, and this is a quote from the book on page 76, and she says, the author says, the old adage, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. And a lot of times when people are facing Baba Yaga, they're facing something that is threatening them. And she goes on to say, Baba Yaga is the epitome of this idea, though with her, we could always change the spelling for a phrase equally true. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. So instead of that which, WHICH, she says that which, WITCH. So the witch as Baba Yaga actually doesn't kill us, even though she might threaten to, but she actually makes us stronger. And that's definitely the one of the morals and lessons in these stories. And one of the stories that I really enjoyed was the story of Maria Borevna. And let's see if I can find it. It is, yes, Maria Morevna. And this was one that I had never heard of before. And it features Maria Morevna, who is one of the heroines, but it also features Ivan Tsarevich, who is a kind of an archetypal feature, or a person in several of the Russian folklore folk tales. And so he is in this story, and they both work together. And it's the one of the famous kind of lines where Maria Morevna she's married Ivan, and he's young and just, so in love with Maria, and she leaves and to go fight Koshi the Deathless, who is again one of the kind of archetypal characters in Russian and Slavic folk tales. And she says, I'm going, and whatever you do, don't open the door in the basement. And he goes down, of course, and opens the door in the basement and lets out Koshi the Deathless. And then he goes to Baba Yaga to help, and for her to help him rescue Maria, who then is captured by Koshi the Deathless because she had been fighting him and put him in this prison. And so in the end, Baba Yaga helps Ivan, and Ivan is able to defeat Koshi, and then they live happily ever after. So it's one of the stories that I had not heard of, and the one that I was most familiar with was Vasilisa, and she is the little girl who is her father dies and remarries the wicked stepmother with the wicked sisters, and she's treated very badly, and the stepmother wants to get rid of her, so she tells her, blames her for all kinds of things, and she goes to Baba Yaga and lives with Baba Yaga, and needs to get fire to start their fire again at home, and lives with Baba Yaga for a while and learns to to stand up to her evil stepmother and sisters. And so that is the most I don't know if this is the most popular one, but it's the one that I was most familiar with. And so overall, I think it is a really good book. It's very it's written, the author is she has written other books. She's written one other fiction book that is a fiction retelling of the Baba Yaga story, which I have not read, but I might after this. And she's also written one or two books about writing itself. And so she is a writer and knows about that. And I really like that because I was an English teacher and I taught writing, and so it was very fun to read her. She's definitely got a very cheeky style of writing. She likes to ask a lot of rhetorical questions, and it's fun. And it's not very long. It's something that I definitely could finish in a month, and the stories are very entertaining. And she has a lot of history, and she follows the history from the ancient Slavic culture through Russian folklore tellers in the 17th and 18th century, and then into today's time, and how Baba Yaga's story has changed and not changed, and how it's become just how she's become a goddess now that is familiar to people, and what she stands for. So I definitely do recommend the book. And I also have two other books. And this is Baba Yaga's Book of Witchcraft by Madame Pamita. And if you're familiar at all, Madame Pamita she is an also a Ukrainian witch, and she has her own. She has a website. She has a membership, all kinds of things. She does a lot of magic, folk magic, and I got this book. Of course, I got interested in Madame Pamita because she is Ukrainian, and so this is a book that is very much about the Ukrainian telling of Baba Yaga's story, and it is full of Ukrainian magic and the stories behind Ukrainian magic. Like here is the creating a pokat, which is a a sacred space to create a pokat. And so she talks about these kinds of things and what they are, and explains them and how to make one. And she talks about the posanki, the decorated eggs, and a lot of the foods and the embroidery that Ukraine you can see the kind of the embroidery around here in some of the pictures. But and up here, the embroidery that's so famous in Ukrainian clothes. And so, which I have some embroidered Ukrainian clothes. And so, but it's a really good book, especially if you like the mix of history, storytelling, and wanting to learn and do crafts and do your own crafts. And some of them are very easy, some that you can do that are very simple, and some of them are much more involved. And you can kind of pick and choose the ones that you like, but definitely in the Baba Yaga realm, and I recommend. And the last one that I recommend is The Witch and the Tsar. And this is by Olesya Salnikova Gilmore. And this is a fiction book that is a retelling of the Baba Yaga story. And again, I really enjoyed it. It's set in if I remember correctly, I think it's set around the time of the around the time the last of the czars, when the czars Ivan and Anastasia, and they were all the czars were overthrown in Russia, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it's around that time. And she is, she and Baba Yaga is there as a, as just kind of a person, and she's trying to uncover her past as, both a person living in this world, a witch, and a goddess, and finding her story, and also, defeating the evil that's in the world. And so it was very enjoyable. It was a really fun book, and I really liked it as a retelling of the Baba Yaga story. So that is it. And the Broom and Moon Coven is open. It is hosted on a platform called School, Skool. You can join the free community at any time and come in and chat. We have Tuesday tea times, and we have Sunday planning sessions, and we have a monthly new moon circle there for your free, for in the free membership in the free community. And then the paid membership is also open, so every month there you get lessons on a theme of the month, and you get 4 monthly lessons, as along with 2 moon circles, and crafting circles, and time to make swaps, and lots of things. And there's lots of just great things that I'm really looking forward to, and I'm really excited about having the Coven open and it being there for us to share in this witchcraft journey. So again, I'll leave things down in all these links down the bottom, so you can find all of these things at the end. And I will see you again. I've got 4 new things coming up starting next week, and I will, when the next video comes out, you can see the things that I'm working with in April. All right, thank you for being here and watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.